My brothers, my sisters, today we're talking about being married. That's right. Marriage is a beautiful thing. Having someone to love you the way that you love them. Having someone you can share your life with. Having that significant other that you can wake up to every day with a smile on your face. Being married is a beautiful thing and it's a good feeling. But the thing about it, being married is not always easy. That's right. It's not always easy. Because to be married, you got to remember, you got to be patient. You got to have understanding. You got to be forgiving. Being married is not always easy, but it's not impossible. I believe the number one reason that a lot of marriage fail is because you don't have God in your marriage. You got to have God in your marriage. And number two, you got to have communication. You got to be able to communicate with each other in your marriage. It shouldn't be nothing that you can't talk to each other about. Number three, you got to be forgiving. You got to be forgiving in marriage. You can't hold grudges against one another because that means you're holding grudges against yourself. You got to remember, once you become married, you are one flesh. You are one flesh. That's right. You say to yourself, well, what is marriage? What do being married really mean? God tells us that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. It say, therefore should a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cling unto his wife, and they should become one flesh. One flesh. You leave your father and mother. You leave your mother's house. You leave your father's house. And you cling unto your wife. That's who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. That's who you made your vows before in front of God. And you are one flesh now. One flesh. You give each other that same respect as you want to give yourself. You can't treat each other no longer as individually. You are one flesh. You give that woman the same respect that you want. And that woman must give that man the same respect that she wants. You must love that woman the way that you love yourself. And that woman must love that man the way she loves herself. Because if you love a person the way you love yourself, you'll never do nothing to hurt that person. You'll never do nothing to disrespect that person. You'll never do nothing to humiliate that person because you wouldn't do that to yourself. That's why you are one flesh now. You're supposed to love that person with all your heart. You're supposed to be able to sit down and talk to that person. Forgive that person. You got to treat that person as you want to be treated. You are one flesh when you're married. I'm going to read another chapter. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Husband, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Just as Christ loved the church, husband, you're supposed to love your wife that same way. Wife, you're supposed to love your husband that same way. Love is amazing when you really love a person and you really want to show that person that you love them. You won't do nothing to hurt that person. You won't do nothing to bring that person down. You always want to uplift that person because you love that person so much. You want to see that person make it. You want to see that person do good. So no matter how much temptation come across you, you're going to always have that person in your heart and on your mind that you're going to think about it before you do it. You're going to say, nah, because I love my husband so much. Nah, because I love my wife so much. No matter how good that temptation look, your love for that person will override that temptation. Verse 29. For no man even yet hated his own flesh, but nurses and cherishes it, even as the Lord the church. For no man even yet hated his own flesh. You don't hate your own flesh, but you nurture it and cherish it. That's the same way you should treat your woman. That's the same way you should treat your wife. And vice versa. You are one flesh. God stresses that through his word. You are one flesh. The same way you want to treat yourself, the same way you're supposed to treat your significant other, your husband, your wife. You don't want no one cheating on you, so don't you cheat on your husband or don't you cheat on your wife. Thou shalt not commit adultery. No matter how good temptation look, you should have enough love and respect for your significant other to don't do it. Because you're going to love that person the way you love yourself. You're going to nurture that person the way you nurture yourself. Cherish that person the way you cherish yourself. That's a true marriage. All right. Just remember, you are one flesh. Marriage is not always easy. But marriage is not impossible. And marriage is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing feeling. It's a loving thing. It's amazing to have someone to talk to every day. Someone to wake up to. Someone to love you the way that you truly love them. And your marriage can work. But you got to remember, you got to put God in your marriage first. Second, you got to communicate with one another. Third, you got to be patient. You got to be patient. You got to be forgiving. You got to be understanding in marriage. You got to have understanding. And another thing, when you're in a marriage, you got to learn to listen. Listen to one another also. Truly listen. Truly listen to each other. Truly listen. Don't let what a person tell you, your significant other tell you, go in one ear right the other. Sit down and listen to them. Talk to them. Come to an understanding. And when you get into arguments, me and my wife, we had to learn not to holler and scream, because we started figuring out that she was hearing things that I wasn't saying. I was hearing things that she wasn't saying. No, that way ain't what I said. Yeah, you did. You said this. No, I said this and that. When it's confusing, demons get in the mix, and they start causing more confusion by turning words. So you yelling, you hollering, you screaming at one another. They call them even more confused. So you got to learn to take that deep breath and say, we'll talk about it. Let me step outside. Whatever you got to do to calm down without the hollering, screaming, and yelling, and letting your tempers flare too much. And learn to sit down and talk. Because you love one another. You never always agree on everything. But that's okay. You don't always have to agree on everything. But that don't mean that it have to be hollering and screaming and yelling just to get your point across. It's going to be a lot of time you're going to have to agree to just disagree. It's okay. You can have your own opinion. But you don't have to let it get out of control. Just have understanding and respect one another. Truly love one another. All right. I want to give thanks to the subscriber who requested this video. Thank you so much. And if it's your first time watching one of my videos, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Join the family. Help the channel grow. To all my subscribers, I thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for all the new subscribers, for everyone's support and help growing the channel. If you like to share the video, please do. Until next time, as always, keep God first. Stay prayed up. Stay safe. And remember, marriage is a beautiful thing. Don't let no one tell you otherwise. It's an amazing feeling to love someone and have someone to truly love you the way you love them. You just got to keep God in your marriage. You got to communicate. You got to forgive. You got to listen. And you got to have understanding. Thank you. And always remember, God loves you. So do I.